Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be talking about an upcoming snowstorm for the Midwest and the upper Midwest of the United States. Now, before I get started with this video, though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Let's get right into things. First things first, we're going to be looking at our NAM 12KM model for our near-surface reflectivity, which is basically simulated radar here. And we're going to be taking a look at this storm. Now, we can see things starting out eastern Colorado seeing some snowfall, and then western Kansas as well. And we see our low pressure system just below Kansas there. And that's going to be by Sunday, maybe at about 7 p.m., February 23rd. Let's go ahead and move on a frame, and this is going to be by about 2 a.m. on Monday. And we can see our low pressure system is located just there on the very bottom of the screen there in Oklahoma. And we see more snowfall taken over there for western Kansas and southern Nebraska. And that's actually going to be quite moderate here. As you can see, we see some of those deeper blue colors, and that's going to indicate the areas where we could potentially be dealing with some more moderate to heavy snowfall within this one. It's not going to be very long-lived, but we could be seeing this heavier snowfall, and that's really what's going to bring the accumulations for some areas. Now, let's move on towards Monday, maybe at about 12 p.m. here, and this is going to be February 24th by this point, and you could see it actually dissipates quite a bit, but we do see that low pressure system is located there in southeastern Kansas. We see that snowfall is mostly for northeastern Kansas and northern Missouri there, even though it might be in the form of ice indicated by those pinks. Now, it's as we move beyond this point that it starts to become more major in nature. Now, we're about to move on and take a look at that, where it's going to start impacting the upper Midwest with some moderate to heavy snowfall here. And it's as we move on towards about dinner time on Monday, I would say 5 p.m. here, we see northern Missouri and then southern Iowa as well as northern Illinois starts to get taken over by this more moderate snowfall here, and our low pressure system is located there in central Missouri. By this point, we see rain for central Illinois and Indiana through Ohio, but north of there we do see some snowfall going on. Let's move on towards about 8 p.m. on Monday, February 24th. And we see the heavier snowfall is now located mostly there for Iowa, mostly in the southeastern corridor of that state there. We see northern Illinois as well. Notice some snowfall going on for the Dakotas through Nebraska, and that's some snowfall that's going to become associated with our system. It's kind of going to merge and bring a lot of snowfall to a lot of regions here in the upper Midwest. Let's go ahead and move on towards maybe about 8 or 9 p.m. on Monday, February 24th. And we can see that the two different areas of snowfall are getting a lot closer together here by this point. And we see Chicago is experiencing some snow, and then very far northern Indiana. We're going to see that rain-snow line continue to move further north and further north and further north as we move forward in this snow system. But we do see some moderate snowfall going on for North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, northern Missouri by this point, and northern Illinois and northern Indiana. Now, we're about to move on to where we're going to start talking more about a Wisconsin and Michigan snowstorm, as those areas are going to start to get more heavily involved, and actually that seems to be the highlight of the storm for those areas. And this is going to be by about 2 a.m. on Tuesday, February 25th. And we can see that snowfall has completely merged together. That snowfall going on for where the Dakotas, Nebraska, has merged with the area further east there for the upper Midwest. And it's all a continuous line of snowfall going on from the Dakotas through down into Nebraska, in through Iowa, and then in through the Great Lakes regions as well, all connected by this point. Like I said, it was going to merge, and it's gone ahead and done that by this point at about 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Let's go ahead and move on a frame, and we can see Michigan and Wisconsin are starting to get way more involved. We see some of those deeper blues becoming a lot more widespread for Iowa. They're going to get heavily impacted by this storm as well, if you can't tell by this point, because we've seen some earlier moderate snowfall and now some later on moderate snowfall, so they're going to be seeing continuous snowfall throughout this storm. But it is headed north. Chicago kind of coming to an end there, and this is going to be probably by about 4 a.m. here. Let's move on towards about 10 a.m., and we see Chicago, you're getting a second area of snowfall as the low pressure system travels just to your south. And all of that snowfall comes together for the Dakotas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. You can tell Wisconsin and Michigan are starting to get way more involved here by this point. in kind of the afternoon or morning time here of Tuesday, February 25th. Let's head towards that afternoon though, and this is probably going to be by about I would say 3 or 4 p.m. here on Tuesday, February 25th, and we see that moderate snowfall going on for Minnesota, Iowa, and through Wisconsin, specifically southern Wisconsin, I think, is going to be very heavily impacted by this one, and then in through northern Michigan, we're also seeing that moderate to heavy snowfall. Just flurries there for Chicago. If this storm is a little bit further south than what we expect, Chicago could be very heavily involved with this storm. However, this whole season has been dictated by storms trending further north as we move on, so I highly doubt it's going to come any further south than it already is. Now we're about to move on to where we're going to start to see that storm start to intensify even more. Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan are going to start to really see that accumulating snowfall as we head into February 26th, Wednesday. And at this point, we've pretty much started to see very moderate to heavy snowfall here for Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and in through Michigan, northern Michigan especially there. Let's move on, and we're going to have to switch over to our GFS model because we're getting too far out for the NAM model here by this point. But as we move on to our GFS model, this is going to be by about 8 p.m. on Wednesday, this is going to be by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, February 25th, actually. And again, Wisconsin, Michigan, the most involved. Let's move on towards about 2 a.m. on Wednesday, and you can see this one starting to come to an end. Our low pressure system is located somewhere in Michigan. The GFS has the storm a little bit further north than what our NAM model was showing, so it's going to really be a fine line between where we're seeing this snowfall happen and where we see rain. Let's move towards about 8 a.m., and you can see it's starting to dissipate. We see the upper peninsula by this point is really starting to see some snowfall, but other areas not as much by this point. And then as we head towards the afternoon of Wednesday, February 26th, maybe by about 2 p.m., it's dissipating, all said and done. Maybe some lake effect snowfall afterwards, but really it's dissipated for the most part, and it's going to be mostly said and done. Now, we're about to get into our snowfall total model coverage here from the NAM model, the GFS, and the Canadian model, which is very interesting because it has the storm a lot further south in these areas, has Chicago in the bullseye, which is very interesting. I don't think that'll happen, but we'll take a look at that model as well as we move on here. Alright, so first things first, we're looking at our NAM model, and we can see in those purples and pinks, that's where we're expecting in the purples 3 to 6 inches of snow. We see that for Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, northern Missouri, areas in Kansas and Colorado as well, and then that area where we saw that second area of snowfall for northern or North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska there. And then in the pinks, that's where we're looking at 6 to 12 inches of snow. Maybe even a bit of green there for Iowa. That's where we're looking at 12 inches plus. So it could be a very major snowstorm for you guys. You might be wondering, why isn't it showing it for Wisconsin and Michigan? Well, the NAM model ends at 8 p.m. on Tuesday because it can't go out any further. So let's look at our models that actually can extend to the end of this storm, where we will see what happened for Wisconsin and Michigan. Here's your GFS model. Further south than the NAM, you can tell a lot less snowfall for Iowa. So we have major disagreement at this point. The NAM model has been doing really good with placement. I don't think we will see 12 inches or even 10 inches for Iowa, but definitely not going to be looking at as little as 2 to 3 inches, I don't think. I think we will see a lot more than that. But we can see for Wisconsin and Michigan, they have it in the bullseye here on the GFS, where there's a general 6 to 12 inches of snow possible, all the way through southern and central Wisconsin. The upper peninsula of Michigan is spotty, but then northern lower peninsula there, going to be looking at a general 6 to 12 inches being possible. And then quickly, let's look at that Canadian model. Again, a very major outlook here on the Canadian model, actually really overdoing it, I think, and it's way further south. Going to be interesting to see what happens here with this storm. I can't wait to watch what happens. But we see Kansas through northern Missouri, southern Iowa, and then through Chicago getting 10 inches plus, and then southern Michigan. Yeah, don't think this is going to happen, but I wanted to show it because obviously we have all these possibilities, and this is definitely a possibility. It's just a lot more slim than I think the northern option for this storm is. We'll have to wait and see what happens as we move forward. I might have to make a follow-up video for this storm and actually make a snowfall forecast. It just depends if it's this more major outlook that the Canadian model has, or if it's more like what the GFS wants to show in a general 6 to 8 inches being possible. Might not have to update it if that's the case, but definitely if the Canadian model's right, Chicago going to be in for a big snowstorm here. Northern Missouri, southern Iowa, areas like that could be dealing with a major snowstorm here. Southern Michigan as well. I know you guys have been lacking in snow. Going to be interesting to see what happens with this storm. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social medias, and I will see you guys in the next video.